Hi guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Naina. Hi, Medina. I love the name Medina.
Thank you.
It's so different. What does Medina mean?
It's Arabic and it's a peaceful city in Mecca.
Oh, it's lovely.
So I'm peaceful.
Yeah, I can see from your aura. So, yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. So today we're about to talk about the stay-at-home moms and the housewife. But before we go into that, I've got a question for you guys, and hopefully you can help me. It's all about reprimanding children. How do you reprimand a child? So I overheard a conversation recently of two of my friends having a conversation about, you know, having the in-laws over and they've got kids. And she was like, oh, I love my in-laws, but each time the kids come around, they always leave breaking half the glass in the house and all of that. And she finds it really hard to kind of tell them to stop doing certain things or playing rough. How do you reprimand a child, especially when they're not yours?
I think when it comes to reprimanding, I would assume that you're doing that for the child's own good. So if you're coming from a place of love and obviously you're not doing it just because you just want to be funny, I mean, it should be okay. And speak to them, let them know this is what you've done, it's not right, you know, this is what you're costing me by doing what you're doing. And I don't appreciate it in my house. This is how I like things to be, and set the ground rules. I don't think if anyone does anything within reasonable, kind of like within reason, that the parents would be upset about it. I think it's going the extra mile, going over the top, that now becomes the problem.
So what if when you talk to the child still doesn't listen? And, you know, what do you do?
I think the parents probably need reprimanding. I actually do, because if the child isn't listening and they come to your house and they're breaking things, that parent needs to deal with the child. So I think I'd speak to both the child and the parent. And if they continue breaking things, they just don't come back to my house.
I like that.
Yeah.
And how would you deal with your child? Because obviously you both have children. You've got 3 children, and Medina, you've got 1. And how would you feel if your child came home and told you that they were, you know, one of my aunties told me off or something? How would that make you feel, and what would you do?
First of all, I would like to find out what's happened. Like,
and would you find that out from her, from your child, or from the aunt?
I would speak to my child first before I speak to the... And if I found out that they've actually done something wrong, obviously I would, like, I have had situations where that has happened and my children are like, oh, so-and-so said this to me because I've done this and whatever. I'm like, do you know what? You're lucky we're in England. If it was in Nigeria, they would probably knock you out. So do you understand what I mean? I don't condone evil, and I don't condone bad behavior. And I believe that it takes more than just me to raise my child. If anybody, like, I've had a situation whereby a friend of mine saw my son coming home with his friend and they went to the corner shop. He's not allowed to do that. So my friend saw him. I'm like, oh, thank you very much for telling me. Like, in this kind of town where we are, or the country where we are, people kind of like see a child going bad and they don't say anything. And that's why people, you know, children get out of hand. So I like the fact that it's not just me who's looking out for my child. I've got like a whole kind of village, a whole kind of like clan, you know, trying to bring up my child. So I would never say, oh, don't talk to my child if you see my child. I'll tell you, if you see my child doing something wrong, tell them off and I will back you up. That's how it should be. So that way, they know that people are watching them. It's not just me. They're going to try and pretend to be holy in front of me and they go outside and do whatever. So they know that other people are watching them and they're keeping an eye on them, so they have to behave.
Honestly, I really quite like the angle that you've come in. Metin, have you got anything to add to this?
I do believe that it does take a village to raise a child. And I was just thinking about my daughter and my mum. My mum was taking care of her for a period while I was working. And my mum is very firm with her, very strict, and she just doesn't do silly things around my mum. And if my mum talks, if my mum says sit down, she sits down. When it comes to us, we have to say it so many times for her to even do it. And so if she comes to me and says, oh, Mummy, Nana and shouted at me, I'd say, were you listening? It's because you weren't listening. I'm not even going to entertain, oh, well, Nana Ann shouldn't shout. No. And so the other day we were driving to my mum's and she was doing something in the car and I don't know what it was. And I said, okay, when we get to Nana Ann, I'm going to tell her what you're doing and she's going to tell you off. And then she was like, no, Mum, no. She's only 2.5. She's like, no, Mummy, don't tell Nana Ange. Okay. You okay?
Bless her.
So it actually, like, it touched me, but then I was like, I want what my mum has.
No, but you see, it's that whole good cop, bad cop. You need that person, in their life that would, you would say to them, look, if this person hears you're doing this or you've done that, they would fix up.
And then that's the thing, with my husband, I'm the bad cop and he's the good cop. Like, she's got him wrapped around her finger. Anything that she wants, she'll get it from him. And with me, I'm like more firm. I'm trying to have my mum's approach. And so I do think that children should be reprimanded. I think they need to be spoken to firmly. I do shout sometimes, maybe.
I think women generally, when we talk, we're very loud when we talk.
And if she's doing, so for example, yesterday we were in the shop and she was touching something and I said, don't touch, don't touch, don't touch, don't touch. And then she was like, but then she stopped touching. So.
Yeah, okay, thanks ladies. I thought, you know, but good to kind of get your perspective on, because I know a lot of women out there would say, do not talk to my child this way, do not tell my child off, whatever issues you have, come to me. And I'm like, by the time they come to you, things would have been so bad. And sometimes people won't come to you to tell you because they know what they're going to get off you.
I don't understand it.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you guys for shedding some light into that. Let's move over to today's topic, which is a little bit more interesting. There's been claims for many decades that housewives or stay-at-home moms are more effective than their career mom counterparts because they spend more time around their children. Another report published by the Journal of Marriage and Family shows that the amount of time mothers spend with their children has no bearing whatsoever on their emotional well-being or their academic achievement. These two reports rather conflicting, but we are about to find out from our guests who are stay-at-home moms and mompreneurs. So ladies, what are your thoughts about the reports? As we can see, it's a little bit I'd say conflicting because, you know, one end you've got to stay, you know, it's a good thing to have stay-at-home moms, it helps, and then the other bit says it actually doesn't. What are your thoughts about the reports and how does it make you feel?
Actually, I don't believe it's in the amount of time you spend with a child, it's the quality of time you spend with your child. Because you could still be physically present and emotionally and mentally absent from that child. So in as much as you're still in the same space, it doesn't mean you're giving the child the love, the attention, and whatever the child needs at that time. So it's the quality, not the quantity,
Absolutely, that counts. What about you, Medina? What are your thoughts around that?
I never thought about that, but that actually does make sense. And as you were reading, I was just thinking, as you're talking about the second article saying that it has no bearing, I was thinking that's a lie. Someone just made that up. I think it is important that we do spend quality time with our children, and especially like the early years when they're soaking so much in. Like you want to ground them, you want to teach them your values. That's what I believe personally. I want to ground Eliana. I want to teach her my values. So I think there's an important it's important, but then there's also the point where if you don't feel like you're there presently for your child or your children, then you might as well just, maybe not be
there.
Right, so I guess the next question reads to you guys is, we know that there's a whole lot of assumptions made by the society about stay-at-home moms. So what would you say are the typical assumptions made against, obviously, because you both are stay-at-home moms? What would you say are the usual things people would say about you the moment they hear, oh, you're a stay-at-home moms?
I think it's different now because a lot of people know what I'm doing, so it's complete. Nobody asked me that question, but
so when you say people know what you're doing, what do you mean?
Like
by
they know, like I'm very visible online,
okay.
And people who know me, they know exactly what I do. In as much as obviously I work from home and I'm more at home, so I don't really get those sort of questions, but I do understand what you mean by the assumptions, because people believe like if you're at home that you're just there sleeping, you're not doing anything, you're just not doing anything in your life, you're just whiling away time. And you understand what I mean? After cleaning, what else do you do, kind of thing. But I think being a housewife is the hardest thing ever to do. It's like it takes a lot of like mental strength to be at home, because to be able to motivate yourself is not easy. Just being at home by yourself, doing stuff in the house, you know, obviously if the children are
No
in
one to
school,
talk to.
exactly. That's where I was coming to. When the kids are in school, you're just there by yourself. You don't have anyone to talk to. So you need to kind of structure your day in such a way that it's feeling
Productive.
and you're being productive. And unfortunately, in the society that we are, people expect a woman to do that anyway. So if you're doing that, it feels like, why are you complaining? Is that not your job anyway? Is that not what you're supposed to be doing anyway? So why do you have to take extra time to stay at home to do it? Do you understand what I mean? People are still going to work, coming back, they're still doing the house chore. So what are you actually doing at home? But people don't understand that it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Being able to drop your children off at school, being able to pick them up from school, being there to speak to them, speak to them about their day, cook their favorite meals, making sure that everything is in place, preparation for the next day. It takes a lot to do. And it's something that the society actually needs to be recognizing more, that the work of, you know, it's not easy. Like, I remember when I used to do the whole, like, 9 to 5, rushing there everywhere. It was easier to do that than to be in the house, because I know that at this time, I'm off and I'm heading to work. When I go to work, I know, like, the things I need to do. I just do those things. Then I come home. The child's already been in school. The child's been back. All I need to do, oh, are you okay?
Yeah,
all right?
it's a bit less, absolutely.
And then, do you understand? You have less to do. And then you put the child to bed. You're gone to bed. It starts the cycle the next day.
Yeah.
So when you're at home, you even need to be more creative to be able to. And then you have more responsibilities, because people believe you're at home. So obviously nobody should be contributing to helping you. So everything now falls on, on your shoulders. So, it's not something people, do you know what? When I left my job and I decided to go the whole stay-at-home road, I was like, you know what? I really rate people
that are doing it.
I'm telling you,
it's a lot of work.
I took it for granted.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I didn't actually realize how much work goes into it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for saying that, Medina. What are your experiences? Obviously, you've been a stay-at-home mum for a while now, and I know you do.
Okay. Work at home.
Oh, wow, I like that.
Yeah. Not stay-at-home mum. And I realized that the stay-at-home mum title is just so not me. Like, I don't like the domestic chores. I don't like cooking. I don't like cleaning, ironing. The washing machine washes the clothes, which is great. But when my daughter was four days old, I made my first sale online, and I was like, oh, wow, people are interested. And then I just continued doing that. And I think for me, that helped me mentally. It helped me when I felt so low, like, all the emotional highs and lows that you go through being at home, not having anyone to talk to, that helped me. It validated me, because I felt like, oh, somebody's interested in my creativity. Someone's interested in what I'm doing and what I can provide. So for me, that was like a savior. The other thing to it is that you don't realize that there are other women, other people around the world going through what you're going through. And I think the best thing that Apple made was podcasts. So I just used to listen to podcasts while I'm cooking, while I'm cleaning, while I'm doing all the mundane chores that I hate doing, and listening to all of these women doing business, lots of business related.
So you
podcasts.
get inspired by just listening to
and not
women.
only that, I felt like they were like my family. I felt like I could totally relate with them. And even though, like, I think one of the days where my husband first went back to work after we had our daughter, he came home and I was actually like just finished. I was like struggling. This new mum thing was just so not me. I had burnt toast in the morning for breakfast. I can't remember what I had for lunch, or even if I did have lunch or dinner. And he came home and he was like, so what did you do all day? He saw me on the bed. And
do you know what? We're going to come into that later, because that will be the struggles that a stay-at-home mom feels. So let's talk about this whole feminist movement. I think that's something a bit ridiculous now. So there's a whole lot of feminist movement. You have to be a career woman. You have to have things going on for you. Are we putting a lot more pressure on women in general?
I don't think it's... I don't think women should feel pressured because of feminism. I just think that women need to be comfortable in their own shoes, comfortable doing what they like to do. And for me, being a stay-at-home mum, I wasn't comfortable with that. So I had to find something creative to do, something that fulfilled me. And so I was working on my business while looking after a child. It was hard. It was so hard because I wanted to sleep, and also doing the other things that needed to be done. So yes, there may be pressure, and I think pressure comes from the expectations that people put on you as a stay-at-home mum. But then that's not what you're expecting from yourself.
Absolutely.
You're not expecting to be cleaning and cooking and just doing that like every day of your life. But
that's what's assumed of you to do, right? Because you're a stay-at-home mum. So the other half comes home and the house still looks a bit untidy. So what have you been doing? But like I said, we'll go into that a little bit more. Now let's flip things a little bit on the other side.
Can I just make a point? You know, when you're talking about feminism, I think people take feminism to the extreme. Feminism is all about like being who you want to be as a woman. That's what I believe feminism is. So if you feel in yourself that there's some women who don't really have aspirations, they just want to just have kids, just want to raise children. If that's what you want to do, you should be able to just do that. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's what I believe feminism is all about. Yeah. It's all about being able to be who you are, achieve the truest potential of who you want to be.
That's true.
Do you understand? So that you have that choice. If you want to be working 9 to God knows when, that's on you, yeah? If you want to just be at home, not do anything, that's what you choose for yourself. That's what I believe feminism is all about. Not the extremes that we hear about on
Again, it's all down to the societal assumption, you know. There's a certain definition of what something is meant to be like, and there is what the society expects of that particular situation. So let's just move on to things a little bit more interesting thing. I'm just trying to think, if men were the ones stay at home dads, will they get as much bashing as women get? Do you think they'll get as much bashing?
Do you know what? Worse? I just watched a movie, a French movie. I'm trying to remember the name, but I can't. There was kind of like a role reversal. It was like this society where men assumed the stereotypes that women would, in terms of like men had to like shave their legs, shave everything, pluck the eyebrows, do everything just to please the man. Do you understand? I didn't really think that that's what we were doing.
The things we do.
I watched the movie. I was like, you know what? It was kind of like, it was interesting to see that men, like a woman was shouting and the man was like, oh my God, you see, she's shouting at me again. And the other man was like, oh, I understand what you're going through. And I'm like, oh my God.
Do we really do this in autopilot mode?
Yeah, it was a movie. So they were trying to like go like all the way with it. But you know, I was looking at it, I'm thinking, can men actually like really cope in a female kind of like role, so to say? Because I believe that women growing up were taught to multitask, to do this, do that, and care for this. Men are just kind of like
one way direction. What are your thoughts, Medina?
Yeah, I was actually thinking there's an image that I have in my mind that a woman's brain is like that, like, and a man thinks like that. And it's weird because when my husband has my daughter, she won't have lunch, but she'll have dinner. I obviously give her breakfast before I leave. And I come back and I'm like, okay, so what did she eat for lunch? Yeah, I brought yogurt to the park, but the yogurt's in the fridge. So it's like, what? Like, and they can't think about all of these things. Like, if we're trying to leave the house, I can get myself ready, I can get her ready, I can get the things ready, and he just gets himself
can just do
ready.
one thing at a time. So we definitely know that it's not a world for the men.
So I just think that they will actually struggle, but there are men who do it.
Absolutely.
And they have to learn.
They have to learn. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go into you guys a little bit, you know, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing some of your experiences being a stay-at-home mom or whatever it is. So I think work at home mom. So I think I'll be directing this question to you, Medina. What are your main struggles being a work or stay-at-home mom?
We were having a conversation the other day and I was like, I was just working non-stop today from like the time I dropped Eliana to nursery to the time that like it was time to pick her up. He was like, but what were you doing? I was like, work. And the thing is, when you run a business, it takes a lot, and especially if you're like a one-man band, you have to be responding to emails, you have to be doing the social media, you have to be trying to figure out ways to market and planning, you know, all your marketing activities, as well as doing the actual design. So I design spaces, as well as doing design, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like sometimes, and then on top of that, I have to think about, okay, do we have enough food in the cupboard, and what do we have, and what am I going to prepare today, and will I have time to do it just before I go and get Eliana? And so it's like, for me, my mind is always like racing, and it's always all over the place. And the only time that I get to like be peaceful and just still is like if I get up at 5 in the mornings, and then I have that 2-hour slot before she wakes up, then that's my time, and I don't like anyone interrupting that. So he doesn't understand that it's more than just, oh, he will say, oh, but all you do is like, you know, you put things in the washing machine, and, you know, I wash dishes sometimes, and how often do you clean the bathroom? But
so clearly from what you're saying, it's very evident that stay-at-home mums are mostly undervalued, and I appreciate it. And I think personally, I think it's still, unfortunately, still what the society still seems to, I think it takes a lot for someone to actually stop and think it's the hardest job, you know, hardest job, most underpaid. And there are other things that are tied to this. So I guess the next question really is, how do you deal with low self-esteem in all of this? Because if your husband was to come home and say, what have you been doing? It definitely does have its knock-on effect on your emotions and how you feel. How do you then manage your, you know, kind of self-esteem in this process?
I think it's helped that it helps when you speak to other women, because you learn that like you're not the only one who's going through that. I didn't really have that many people around to speak to about it, but I did have podcasts. So I'd listen to women in business and what they go through, and it would console me, it would comfort me, and just make me think, okay, well, it's okay, but you have to keep going. So I think that's the way that I've dealt with it, you know, listening to different women around the world, going through different things. There are, like, I have a cousin that she's very, like, hands-on. She loves cleaning. I don't even know if she loves cleaning, but she's always cleaning, like, every day. And she'll cook big meals, and she's like the housewife. And I just don't even try it. And she irons all the clothes. Like, she has 3 children, and she irons their clothes, like even underwear. And I'm like, no, that's just not
that's
me.
not for you.
No. And I don't try and pressure myself to be like that. So yeah.
That's interesting. So let's talk about, I want us to really talk about the actual housewives, you know, stay-at-home mums right now. A lot of stay-at-home mums are doing other stuff, you know, bloggers, writers, and a lot of more interest, which you guys are doing. So let's talk about the typical housewives that aren't doing anything. You said you were there before, at least now people see that you're doing a lot more stuff. So there was a conversation again where I was having with another friend, and it was around, you know, this whole theory reports about the more time you spend with your children, the better they're, the better off than the ones with the career moms. And then I turn around and I say, well, how do you then explain the children that lives in the urban areas, like, you know, council flats or in the project buildings, that the moms are home 24/7, but they're out there with the gang. They are the gang. How then do you explain this? Because, you know, we do have an audience out there that might be going through this. What are your thoughts, and how were you able to manage all of that whilst you weren't doing a lot and making sure that your children are out of the streets, because you've got a 20-year-old?
Yeah, I do,
yeah, correct. Right. So
well, I can't relate to people who live in that kind of area, because I don't. But obviously, the way I'm kind of like brought up, I was brought up in a very kind of like we went outside, like people, you know, people always tell me, oh, we're running outside playing as children. I never really got that. Like my house, I grew up in a very big house, gated, so it was us all the time. So that's how I was brought up, and I'd brought my children up somewhere. It was like, do you understand? You finish from school, you're coming straight home, no hanging on whatever. And my kids went to private school, so they didn't even have friends that would go and hang on the high street or anything like that. So they go to school, they come home. They go to school, they come home. So that way you eliminate, because I always tell them that the more you are outside, the more trouble you actually get into. So keep everything. I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't go, you know, do activities with their friends. Feel there are times with activities that they would go, like after school clubs. They will also do like karate. They'll do like scouts.
So do have other things that they're doing.
So get them doing activities. In as much as you're spending time with your children, there's something called spending too much time with them. Because after a while, you start resenting each other.
And I guess that's where the loss of validation comes in place, because you're spending more. Let's just move quickly onto another question, which is around getting the right support that a stay-at-home mom or housewife needs. So I'd say, you know, my question to you would be: do you feel like you get enough support from your other halves with the children, or is it a case where you're at home? That's your job. I just go out to get the money.
But you see, like with me, like I know like my weaknesses, and like you, I'm not great in as much as I love cooking, but I'm not great at house chores. So I know that
you ladies are sport ladies, aren't you?
No, but you see, you need to understand your weakness, and you need to be, which is the reason why I'm very hardworking. I know that this is something I can do. So if I can do it, I'll pay for someone to come and do it. Do you understand what I mean? So I have someone who comes in to clean.
But that's the thing.
And stuff like that.
But that's the thing. It's because you have something that you're doing. There are a lot of women out there that can't afford. They can't afford to get a cleaner in. They can't afford to get somebody to do something.
But you know, when you have something, like the thing that I always tell people is, I could afford to just be in the house watching TV all day. But I know that if I did that, I won't be able to pay for the life I want. Do you understand? So because of the life I want, I know that it's a high price to pay. It's a sacrifice I have to make. Do you understand what I mean? So it's not anything about, it's not like I don't know, there's some people who, due to circumstances, they can't afford to do certain things. They have to do it for themselves. But I believe that there's something that you can do regardless.
Add value to be
add
able
value
to
who you are and bring in something. I know that I don't want to clean. Do you understand what I mean? And because I know I don't want to do it, I don't have a choice. Like when I see my bills coming in, I don't have a choice. Even if I feel sleepy, I'm going to be out there hustling to try and make up for the things that I have to pay for.
I quite like the angle you've come.
That's the way
I like how you've kind of brought it into, you can be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm glad you guys are doing something, but you still have to kind of hustle and do something on the side to at least have some level of income coming in as well. And that's really, I mean, I think...
Because even a stay-at-home mom could do like drop-offs
for other children.
For other mothers, pick-ups for other mothers and stuff like that. Because when my child was really, really young and stuff like that, I would pick up other children. Do you understand what I mean? I would drop other children off. So then there's something you can do
to add value. Either to yourself or to the community. That's a good. That's a good. Have you got anything else to add to this, Medina?
No,
just quickly and briefly.
Not really. I was actually just agreeing, and I was actually thinking that when I was, because my job, it fluctuates. There's seasons when I am busy and I am like out of the house, and there's seasons when I'm not, and I can focus more on the admin side. But when I was busy, I actually did have a cleaner come in, and it really does help. And then it also, like, I can actually go in and look at the house and think, and then I see we did the same. And I can focus on work, and that's good. I don't always have that luxury, unfortunately. I don't. And even though I work hard, like the income sometimes doesn't equate to that.
Let's you know, kind of lighten the environment up a little bit. Surely with all of this, there must be something exciting about being a mother or being a stay-at-home mother. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the things that the career mums are missing from just being at home. So what are your highlights? Just quickly, what are your highlights of just being a stay-at-home mom, just working from home?
I actually believe one of the highlights is being free of guilt. You know, like that time when you couldn't get time off to go for school meeting, watch the plays and things like that. You can dictate your own time. You have time to, you know, do those things. You can just move around things that you have to do because you're the one in charge of yourself, you're your own boss and stuff like that. Because I remember one time, like, I attended all her plays, but there was just one particular play I didn't get to attend when she was in, I think she was in year 4. Do you know my 20-year-old still talks about that till tomorrow? She's like, oh, Mom, that play, you didn't come. I'm like, oh my God, just that one. Just that one.
And I attended every other thing. How about you, Medina?
I actually do love that. I love the fact that I can actually take my daughter to nursery. And I love the fact that I can take her home and give her a good healthy meal rather than just a quick ready meal. So I do value that. And I do value the flexibility that if she has an appointment, that I can take her and I can see how she's developing, watch her well-being. If they had a nativity play in December, and I went, and I was like, if I was working for someone, if I was a career woman, then I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, I like the fact that I can tell her off and be there to discipline her and even read her books in the evening. So that's really good, and she looks forward to reading books together. So I love that side of it.
So I can tell that there is a sense of achievement in what you guys are doing. That is great. So the last question I'm going to ask you guys before we wrap up is, how do you help to add value within your community, to your community? What do you do? Just quickly.
Yeah, even though obviously I'm a chef, I'm a vegan chef, I also do like wellness coaching, I also do mental health advocacy, and I do some of the services I actually provide are can be free depending on the needs of whoever comes to me. So I do like a talk as well, like I get invited to events to motivate, just let people know that you just don't have to be a certain way. So I try my best to be involved in what's happening in my community, because I believe that giving, you will receive. So I try not to only just give money, I also try to give off my time, because you have to give what you want to receive. So
absolutely. Thank you very much for that. How about you, Medina?
I do various things. I offer workshops teaching children how to make garlands, because that's something that I do and sell. And also, I was just thinking that I've actually given other women, you know, encouragement to start their business and to just push for what they want, to start up an Instagram account and to do, like, I've given everything that I've learned and what I have done for my business to them, one woman in particular. And I remember her coming round to me and I was thinking, what do I have to offer? But I just gave so freely, and then she was so happy. And then I also did recently a talk, because people question me all the time, like, you know, how do I start a business? How do I get into interior design? And how do I do this? And instead of responding individually, I just decided to do a live Instagram video, and I just basically told them how I started, explained everything just out there. And that's they were so appreciative. They really, like, lots of people reached out to me, and I think from that I got other opportunities, and I was like, oh wow, I was actually just trying to help you.
That's good. That's really good to know.
So that's what I was talking about. When you give, you receive.
You receive. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think that was awesome and terrific. Thank you. According to C.S. Lewis, the homemaker has the ultimate career. All other career exists for one purpose only, and that's to support the ultimate career. And that's it for us on today's episode. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at The Joe Maxwell Show. And you can also email us at info@joemaxwellshow.com. Until next time, I am your host, Joe Maxwell.